All right, let's dive deep today. We're tackling the power of habit, how those everyday routines, how they shape our lives. And we've got a great guide for this, Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. We'll be looking at excerpts from it, trying to understand how these habits work, what kind of impact they have, and most importantly, how we can change them.
And one of the most intriguing stories from the book is about a man named Eugene Pauly. And he had severe brain damage, but was still able to learn new behaviors. His story, it really kind of shook things up in the scientific community about how we understand the brain.
It's an incredible story. And Duhigg introduces this concept of the habit loop. It's a three-part cycle that really drives all our habits.
Yeah.
And it all starts with a cue, a trigger that sets the habit in motion.
Like, just think about seeing a bag of chips on the counter, or maybe that familiar afternoon slump, when your energy just dips.
Right, exactly. And then comes the routine, the actual behavior itself,
Mhm.
like grabbing those chips or brewing another cup of coffee.
And finally, the reward, that feeling of satisfaction, the outcome. And that reinforces the habit, and that makes you want to do it again and again.
Now back to Eugene Pauly. So he had severe memory loss from viral encephalitis, damaged his hippocampus. That's the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories.
Hmm.
And so he couldn't recall the past or even form new conscious memories. But here's the fascinating thing. He could still learn new habits.
Yeah, it was astounding. Dr. Larry Squire, a neuroscientist, studied Eugene extensively, and he found that while Eugene couldn't remember the training sessions, he was forming those habits. The key was the basal ganglia, the part of the brain that's responsible for habit formation. That was still intact.
Hold on. So even though he couldn't consciously remember, his brain was still wiring those habits. That's amazing.
Precisely. It seems like habits operate on this much deeper level, almost like autopilot. Think about it. We drive to work, we brush our teeth, eat certain foods, we do it all without really thinking. And Eugene's case, it highlights how this basal ganglia, it plays a crucial role in that, automating those actions even without our conscious awareness.
So it makes me wonder, are all my daily routines, even the ones I barely notice, are they just happening on autopilot thanks to the basal ganglia? And if so, are we really in control? Or is this habit loop more powerful than we think?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? And while this basal ganglia, it is powerful, it doesn't mean we're completely powerless. But understanding its role, it's really crucial, especially if we want to change those habits, those not so good ones.
Okay, so we've got these habit loops running in the background, influencing so much of our behavior. It's almost like a hidden program that's shaping our lives. But if these habits are wired into our brains, how do we actually change them? It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to start exercising every day, but sticking to it, that's a different story.
You're absolutely right. And that's where things get really interesting. Duhigg, he dives into the role of cravings in habit formation. And it turns out cravings are the secret ingredient that makes those cues and rewards so powerful.
Cravings, like how I crave chocolate after dinner.
Exactly. It's that powerful desire. It connects the cue and the reward. And to illustrate this, Duhigg uses this story of Claude C. Hopkins, a legendary ad man from the early 20th century. He was behind some of the most successful advertising campaigns of all time, including Pepsodent toothpaste.
Oh, I've heard of him. Back then, hardly anyone brushed their teeth, but Hopkins somehow changed that, right?
He did. And it all came down to cravings. Hopkins brilliantly identified this simple cue, tooth film, that thin layer of plaque we all have on our teeth, and he tied it to the reward of beautiful teeth. Pepsodent sales, they skyrocketed, even though, toothpaste back then, it didn't really do much to whiten teeth.
Wait, so he convinced people to brush their teeth based on a feeling rather than the actual effectiveness.
Exactly. He created a craving. By associating Pepsodent with this desire for beautiful teeth, he made people want to brush. That craving, it became the engine of the habit loop.
That's pretty insightful. So it's not just about the action and the result, but about this powerful feeling that links them. But how does that apply to, everyday habits? Like if I'm trying to build a habit of exercising, how do I create that kind of craving?
Well, think about the rewards that exercise offers. It's not just about losing weight or fitting into those jeans. It's about how exercise makes you feel. Energized, confident, less stressed. The key is to find the reward that genuinely resonates with you, the one you crave.
Okay, so if I crave feeling strong and capable, maybe I focus on that post-workout feeling, that feeling of accomplishment.
Exactly. Or if you're driven by social connection, maybe finding a workout buddy, joining a class, something like that, would fuel that craving. The key is to tap into that deeper motivation.
This is making me rethink all those little cravings that drive my daily habits, from my morning coffee to to checking social media before bed. It seems like understanding these cravings is the first step to taking control.
Absolutely. We're all susceptible to cravings, whether we realize it or not. But by understanding how they work within this habit loop, we can start to make more, conscious choices about the habits we want to form.
All right. So we've got the habit loop, the cue, the routine, the reward, and the craving that connects them. But let's get practical. Like, how do we actually change a habit? Where do we even begin?
Well, Duhigg offers a framework that he calls the golden rule of habit change. And to illustrate this, he tells the story of Tony Dungy, the NFL coach who famously turned around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Dougie, the coach known for his leadership and calm demeanor. What does football have to do with changing habits?
Well, Dunny, he believed that success, it stemmed from changing the team's habits. He broke down those complex football plays into, smaller, habitualized actions,
Mm.
drilling those actions relentlessly. He knew that under pressure, the brain, it reverts to its habitual patterns. By training those patterns, he was ensuring that the team performed at their best, even in, high-stakes situations.
So he focused on building those automatic responses so players could react instinctively in the heat of the game.
Exactly. And the results were incredible. The Buccaneers, a team once known for losing, they started winning consistently. It wasn't just talent, it was the power of rewiring those habits for success.
That's amazing. But was it just about replacing old routines with new ones?
That's part of it. But Duhigg, he emphasizes another key element, changing the belief system that underpins the habit. Dungy, he instilled a belief in his players that they could win. He fostered this culture of success. The focus was on continuous improvement and this unwavering faith in their abilities. And that belief, combined with those new routines, it created this powerful force for change.
So it's not just about willpower or discipline, right?
Yeah.
It's about cultivating the right mindset. Believing that change is possible. I can see how that applies to personal habits too.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that changing habits isn't just about willpower. It's about fostering the right mindset, believing in your ability to succeed.
So if we're trying to change our own habits, we need to identify the cue, routine, and reward, but also find a way to believe we can actually make the change stick. Do you think that's where finding a supportive community comes in, like a support group for people quitting smoking or trying to eat healthy?
You're spot on. Surrounding yourself with people who share your goals, provides encouragement, accountability. It's a shared purpose. And that social support can really strengthen your belief in your ability to change.
It's like having a cheerleading squad for your willpower.
Yeah.
This is giving you a lot to think about. But before we move on, you mentioned keystone habits earlier. Can you elaborate on what those are and why they're so important?
Of course. Keystone habits, they're those habits that when changed have this ripple effect throughout other areas of our lives. They're like the foundation, the one you build a more successful, fulfilling life on. Duhigg, he gives the example of Paul O'Neill, the former CEO of Alcoa. He transformed the company's safety record. And he did this by focusing on worker safety as this keystone habit.
So by prioritizing worker safety, he kind of inadvertently created this ripple effect that improved other aspects of the company.
Exactly. It led to changes in communication, accountability, and just overall efficiency. O'Neill's focus on this one keystone habit, it created this culture of excellence that just permeated every level of the organization. Think about it in your own life. What's one habit, that if changed could have this positive domino effect on other areas?
That's a great question. It makes me think about how something as simple as food journaling that could lead to healthier eating patterns, or how making your bed every morning could contribute to a more organized, productive day. It's fascinating to think about the impact of one key habit.
It really is. Keystone habits, they create the structure. It supports other positive behaviors. They provide like this framework for positive change.
Okay. So far, we've covered a lot. We've explored this habit loop, the role of cravings, the golden rule of habit change, the power of keystone habits and belief. What really stands out to me is this idea that changing habits isn't about being perfect
Hmm.
or having superhuman willpower. It's about understanding the science behind them and leveraging that knowledge to create lasting change.
I agree. It's about understanding the mechanisms at play and using them to our advantage.
So if we can identify our habit loops, find the right rewards to fuel those cravings, and cultivate that belief that change is possible, we can actually reshape our habits and ultimately our lives. That's pretty empowering.
It is empowering. And before we wrap up this part of our dive, there's one more fascinating aspect of habit formation that Duhigg explores. It raises these profound questions about free will and personal responsibility. It prompts us to consider, just how much control we truly have over our actions.
That sounds intriguing. This is definitely making me question everything I thought I knew about my daily routines.
It's quite a thought-provoking exploration, and I'm eager to share more with you. But let's take a pause here, and we'll continue our deep dive into the world of habits in part two.
So we're back, and we're continuing our deep dive into the power of habit. And there's this question that's been kind of swirling in my mind since our last conversation. Like, do we really have control over our actions, or are we just puppets to these ingrained habits in our brains?
Yeah, it's a question that's puzzled, philosophers and scientists forever. And as we delve deeper into the workings of the brain, that perspective on free will, it gets even more complex.
Last time we left off talking about how habits can operate on autopilot, sometimes even without, conscious memory, thanks to the basal ganglia. It's a little unsettling, honestly, to think about how much of our behavior might be driven by these subconscious patterns.
Yeah, and Duhigg delves into this further with this story of Brian Thomas, a man who tragically killed his wife while sleepwalking. It's a chilling case that highlights this intricate interplay between conscious control and those automatic habitual behaviors.
I remember reading about that case. It's heartbreaking. So sleepwalking, in its sense, it allows these deeply ingrained habits to take over, bypassing our conscious control.
That's right. And it raises these difficult questions about accountability. If our actions are driven by habits we're not even aware of, to what extent are we truly responsible? Where do we draw the line between, intention and ingrained behavior?
Yeah. It's a heavy concept to grapple with.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder if someone acts out of an ingrained habit rather than, conscious intent,
Yeah.
should they be held to the same level of responsibility?
It's a complex ethical and legal debate, and there are no easy answers. But these questions, they underscore the importance of understanding the power of habits and the factors that contribute to their formation.
This reminds me of another case that Duhigg discusses, Angie Bachman, a woman struggling with a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
And, she knew it was ruining her life, but she just couldn't seem to stop.
Yeah, her story illustrates how deeply ingrained, those habitual cravings can become. Her brain had become wired to associate, the casino with reward and escape. And those neural pathways, they became so strong that breaking free felt nearly impossible.
It makes you think about how challenging it can be to break even the most, harmful habits. It's like we're battling our own brains.
And in many ways, we are. It's not simply a matter of willpower. Changing habits, it requires understanding those neurological underpinnings and working to rewire those deeply ingrained neural pathways.
So if we're essentially fighting our own biology, how do we tip the scales in favor of the habits we want? Where do we even begin?
Well, that's where Duhigg offers a glimmer of hope. He introduces this concept of the will to believe, borrowing from the philosopher William James. James believed that belief itself is a powerful force for change.
Yeah. I've heard that, having a positive mindset can make a difference, but how does that actually play out when it comes to breaking those deeply ingrained habits?
Well, James, he argued that if we cultivate a belief in our ability to change, that belief, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It fuels our actions and ultimately shapes our reality.
So to change a habit, we need to believe we can actually do it. It sounds simple, but I can see how that shift in mindset might make a big difference.
It's not just about, positive thinking. It's about consciously nurturing that belief in your capacity for change. And that belief can be strengthened by by focusing on small wins, celebrating successes, and surrounding yourself with support.
So rather than, attempting this complete life overhaul,
Yeah.
the key is to take small, consistent steps and celebrate those victories along the way.
Exactly. As you build those new habits, the neural pathways in your brain, they begin to shift, rewiring themselves for success. It's a gradual process, but with consistent effort, those ingrained patterns, they can change.
This reminds me of something we discussed earlier, how habits, once formed, they actually free up our minds for more complex tasks.
That's right. Habits are often demonized, but they serve an important purpose by automating certain behaviors. They free up, cognitive resources for other pursuits. Think about all those things you do on autopilot every day, like getting dressed or making coffee. They require minimal, mental effort. It leaves your brain free to focus on more demanding tasks.
It's like our brains are outsourcing those mundane tasks to our habit system. I guess habits can be both our saviors and our saboteurs. They can streamline our lives, but they can also trap us in unhealthy patterns.
Exactly. It all boils down to awareness and intentionality.
Mm.
By understanding how habits work, we become, architects of our lives, designing routines that support our goals and shaping behaviors that contribute to lasting positive change.
So we can learn to harness the power of habit for good, instead of letting those ingrained patterns, dictate our lives. Now, shifting gears a bit, Duhigg, he also explores how companies leverage habit formation, and one example that comes to mind is the phenomenal success of Starbucks.
Yeah, it's a company that's truly mastered the art of habit formation, not just for their customers, but for their employees as well.
Like habits for employees. I thought we were talking about, consumer habits.
Well, Starbucks, they realized early on that a consistent, high quality customer experience, it depends on a workforce that's not just efficient, but also, emotionally intelligent and resilient.
So how do they go about, fostering those qualities in their employees?
Yeah.
They provided their employees with specific routines and scripts for handling, challenging situations, like dealing with an angry customer or resolving conflicts. It's like equipping them with this mental toolkit to navigate those tricky moments.
Interesting. So instead of relying solely on, individual willpower, they're providing their employees with pre-programmed responses, essentially training them to react habitually in certain situations.
Precisely. And by training those responses, they're instilling habits of self-discipline and emotional regulation within their workforce. When a barista faces a stressful situation, they can rely on those ingrained habits to stay calm and professional rather than, reacting impulsively.
That's brilliant. It seems like they're acknowledging that willpower is a finite resource,
Yeah.
and providing their employees with tools to conserve that willpower for when it matters most.
Exactly. Starbucks, they recognized the power of habit in shaping not just, individual behavior, but also, organizational culture.
That's a really interesting perspective. It's not just about, selling coffee. It's about creating an environment where desired behaviors, they become the norm. It reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, this idea of willpower as a muscle that can be trained.
You're right. There's growing evidence that willpower, it operates like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes.
So if you practice, self-control in one area of your life, you can actually strengthen your willpower in other
Yeah,
areas.
that's the idea. It's like cross training for your brain.
I like that analogy. So discipline, it isn't about, being strict with yourself. It's about strategically building those willpower muscles through consistent practice. But knowing that willpower can get fatigued, how do we create habits that support our willpower instead of constantly depleting it?
Well, that's where understanding the influence of our environment comes into play. If we're constantly surrounded by, temptations, we're waging this constant battle against our willpower.
That makes sense. I mean, if you're trying to, quit smoking, it's probably not a good idea to hang out with smokers all the time, right?
Exactly. Our environment, it plays a huge role in habit formation. By creating an environment that supports our desired habits, we make it, easier to stick to them and conserve that precious willpower.
Okay, so we've got the habit loop, cravings, the golden rule of habit change, keystone habits, belief, willpower, and the power of environment. Are we missing anything?
There's one more crucial element that Duhigg emphasizes, the importance of community and social support.
Right. He dedicated a whole chapter to the role of social habits in driving movements and change. And I remember being struck by the contagious nature of habits. We're heavily influenced by the habits of those around us,
Uh-huh.
especially those we admire or identify with.
You're absolutely right. Our social networks, they exert this powerful influence on our behaviors. So it's crucial to surround ourselves with people who support our goals and embody the habits we want to cultivate.
Yeah, it's like having this built-in accountability system. And on the flip side, if all our friends have unhealthy habits, we're more likely to pick up those habits ourselves.
That's why choosing the right tribe is crucial. Our social circles, they can either support or sabotage our efforts to change. But beyond, individual habits, Duhigg also explores how social habits they fuel these large scale movements, like the civil rights movement.
He specifically highlighted the Montgomery bus boycott as a powerful example of
Yeah,
that.
he did. And he emphasizes that the boycott's success, it wasn't solely due to Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership. It was about the collective habits of the Black community, their resilience, faith, and commitment to activism.
It's incredible to think about how those shared habits shaped by social networks and shared experiences fueled a movement that changed the course of history.
It's a testament to the power of collective action and the contagious nature of habits. And it also reminds us that habits can be a force for both good and evil, depending on the values and beliefs that underpin them.
Yeah. So it's not just about, changing routines. It's about examining the deeper motivations and beliefs that drive those routines.
Exactly. Changing habits, it can be a catalyst for personal transformation and even social transformation. By changing our own habits, we can inspire change in others, creating this ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves.
That's a powerful and inspiring thought. But before we get too carried away with changing the world, let's take another quick break.
Yeah.
When we come back for the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore a more unsettling aspect of habit. How companies like Target are using big data to not only predict but potentially even manipulate our shopping habits. Don't go anywhere. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into the power of habit. And this next story, well, it might make you think twice about those targeted ads that seem to follow you everywhere online.
It's the story of how they figured out how to predict which of its customers were pregnant, often before they even knew themselves.
You're kidding, right? They could tell if a woman was pregnant just by analyzing her shopping data.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It might sound unbelievable, but it's true. It all started with a data scientist, Andrew Pohl. He
Hmm.
was tasked with finding these innovative ways to use Target's vast, customer data to increase sales.
So we're talking about all those, loyalty cards, online purchases, coupons, all those digital breadcrumbs we leave behind.
Exactly. Target had this treasure trove of information about their customers' shopping habits. And Pohl, he believed that hidden within that data, there were these patterns that could reveal intimate details about their lives, including pregnancy.
Okay, but how can you possibly deduce something as personal as pregnancy just by looking at someone's shopping list?
Yeah.
I'm truly baffled.
Well, Pohl's journey, it began by analyzing the purchasing patterns of women who had signed up for Target's baby registry. He had this confirmed data set of pregnant women, and he could track their shopping habits, in the months leading up to their due dates.
So he was looking for those telltale signs.
Yeah.
Like a sudden surge in diaper and baby clothes purchases.
Well, it was more nuanced than that. He discovered that pregnant women they tend to buy certain products, like unscented lotions, vitamins, washcloths. They buy those in larger quantities than usual, especially during their first trimester.
That's fascinating. I never would have made that connection.
He also found that pregnant women often they overhaul their shopping routines during their second trimester, becoming more adventurous and trying new brands and products.
That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
as their bodies change and their needs evolve, their shopping habits, they naturally reflect those shifts. It's like this subconscious nesting instinct, playing out in their shopping carts.
Precisely. By analyzing these shifts in purchasing patterns, Pohl developed an algorithm. It could predict pregnancy with remarkable accuracy, often before the women themselves had even confirmed it.
Wow. So Target could essentially target, expectant mothers with personalized ads for baby products even before they announce their pregnancy.
You got it. But there was one major snag. People they found it incredibly creepy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's one thing to see ads based on, your recent internet searches, but it's quite another to have a company like seemingly know about sort of personal life event before you've even shared it with loved ones. It feels like a violation of privacy.
And Target quickly realized they needed a more subtle approach. So instead of bombarding these women with exclusively baby related ads, they started mixing them with ads for other products completely unrelated to pregnancy.
So they were strategically camouflaging those diaper coupons and baby clothes ads within a larger pool of unrelated products. Clever strategy, but it still feels a bit manipulative, doesn't it?
It definitely raises ethical concerns about data privacy and the extent to which companies can use our personal information to influence our behavior.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
While, using data to improve, like customer service or recommend products we might, genuinely like, that has its benefits. But using it to predict and capitalize on such intimate aspects of our lives, it feels intrusive and unsettling.
It underscores the importance of being aware of how our data is collected, analyzed, and used. We often just blindly click agree to those lengthy terms and conditions without truly understanding the implications.
This entire deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've explored the intricacies of habit formation, from the neural pathways in our brains to the boardrooms of corporate America. It's fascinating, empowering, and a little bit frightening all at the same time.
It's a potent reminder that we're not just passive consumers in this data-driven world. We're active participants. The more we understand how our habits are tracked and targeted, the better equipped we are to make informed choices and protect our privacy.
Well said. This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey, exploring the science, the strategies, and the ethical dilemmas of habit formation. We've learned that habits are powerful forces. They shape our lives in countless ways. But the good news is we're not slaves to them.
With awareness, effort, and a belief in our ability to change, we can harness the power of habit for good.
So the next time you find yourself, reaching for that bag of chips or mindlessly scrolling through social media, take a moment to pause.
Yeah.
Consider the habit loop at play, the cue, the routine, the reward, and most importantly, the craving that's driving that behavior.
Understanding your habits, it's the first step to changing them. Experiment with different rewards. Find a supportive community and cultivate that belief in your own ability to transform. Remember, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about making progress.
And this deep dive, it's given us a powerful toolkit for understanding and reshaping our habits. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep believing in your ability to create the life you desire.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the power of habit.
And until next time, keep those habit loops spinning in the right direction.
Bye.